What's going on, Phins fans? It is your boy Dillon, and I'm here to do my preview video for this upcoming game, obviously on Sunday, for the Miami Dolphins versus New York Jets. It is obviously going to be in a Hard Rock Stadium, another home game for the Dolphins. We're going to take a look at the injury report and stuff like that, obviously, and get into all that. Real quick, I do want to mention that obviously, there are some games this week on Saturday, so tomorrow, so that's interesting. We're getting back into that point of the year where there's some Saturday games. Not and honestly, too, all of the Saturday games are important to us. In fact, if you go ahead and watch the video that I posted yesterday was my rooting guide, so you can actually take a look at who you're going to be wanting to root for in those games tomorrow and also Sunday. So check that out. And we'll go ahead and jump right into the preview now for the Miami Dolphins versus New York Jets at Hard Rock Stadium. And let's go ahead and pop over. So the first thing we're going to take a look at is the injury report. So for the Dolphins, as you can see, obviously throughout the week, there were a lot of guys that did not participate at various points. In fact, 3 guys, Elliott, Robert Hunt, and Tyreek Hill, all 3 of which did not participate the entire week. Now, let's also note that the team did not practice on Wednesday and held a walkthrough on Thursday. Practice participation is an estimation based on a regular practice, although I do believe that they did practice today, actually practice today. And then so the Friday participation is what actually happened. Now, okay, let's take a look at this. So Deshaun Elliott, obviously, I mean, that's a significant loss, especially with Javon Holland, who was also out. We'll see. He's questionable. But Deshaun Elliott is listed out with his concussion. Obviously, that sucks, but I think we'll be okay. And, obviously that's an injury that he will return from. So it's not like it's a long-term injury. Well, I would expect he'll probably be back for the next game. Now you have Robert Hunt. Obviously, he's been ruled out. That sucks. We could definitely use him. I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see what our offensive line looks like. Let me just say that that's my biggest concern for this game. We'll talk about matchups and stuff here in a minute, but let me go ahead and throw that out there that's my biggest concern. Let me also say this, too, when it comes to players that are injured. Look, it's December football. The fact of the matter is that it's December and football is a violent sport, right? Guys are going to be banged up, point blank, bottom line, period. That's all there is to it. And you're just going to have to deal with it, right? What you hope is that you don't have any significant enough injuries that keeps guys out of the lineup, especially your key guys. You don't have season-ending injuries. We've already had a couple now, Phillips and Williams. You could even throw Isaiah Wynn in there. So that does suck, but it's football, and you gotta deal with it. You gotta overcome it. Next man up, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You gotta manage the injuries to the best of your ability, which I do believe that this coaching staff has done very well. But having said that, at this point, anybody who can play should play, because every single game down the stretch is massively, massively important. These are elimination games in a sense, right? Obviously, they're not. Well, I mean, to be honest, they are elimination games even to make the playoffs at this point. Because if the Bills were to win out and we were to lose out, then there's a very good chance we could swap places with them and not make the playoffs at all with them taking the division, right? And I know a lot of Dolphins fans are super worried about that. I won't be worried about that until after this game. And that will only be if we lose to the Jets. Then I'll start to be a little worried. I am a bit worried, though, about our offensive line. But like I said, at this point, if players can play, they need to play, because these games are massively important. So anyway, Tyreek Hill did not play. I saw him the other night. He was streaming on like Twitch or something and YouTube. It was I think he was streaming on both. Anyway, he was playing Fortnite, and somebody had asked him about his ankle, and he said he was fine. and he's listed as questionable. Here's the thing. He's definitely one of those players that could not participate in practice all week and still play in a game. Definitely one of those players. He doesn't need to practice at all. Frankly, I'd be fine with them not practicing him at all for the rest of the fucking season, if that's what was necessary, and if that means he still gets to get into games, right? But he is listed as questionable. If I had to guess, I would say he's going to play, but we'll see. Obviously, if he didn't play, that is a significant loss. We could overcome it, and we do have plenty of other guys, but other guys definitely will have to step up. Again, we'll talk about that kind of stuff a little bit more in a minute. So, Achane came off. He no longer has a rib injury, so they took that off, but now he's got a toe injury. Didn't participate the first 2 days, although, didn't practice Wednesday, walked through Thursday, but he was limited Friday, okay, and he's listed as questionable. I think he's going to play. Everybody else, I think, has a reasonable chance to play. Everybody else. And like I said, as far as I'm concerned, if motherfuckers are able to play, they need to play. So, anyway, Armstead with his knee ankle didn't participate and then was limited the last 2 days, questionable. Chris Brooks limited all week, questionable. Eichenberg with his calf, DNP limited, then questionable. So this is actually good though, to see these guys limited at least in the Friday practice, because now look, I would say that Armstead is a guy for sure that would not need to practice all week and could play. Like there are some other guys, Mostert's another one, Anyway, but that they're limited, I would say they're good to go. I'm not super worried about these guys playing. Javon Holland, limited all week. We'll see, because it's MCL sprain in both knees. We'll see. Howard with his hip, DNP, but then was limited. Austin Jackson, limited all week. Ginkle, limited all week. Mostert, DNP, but he usually gets a vet rest day anyway, and then was limited, no game status designation. So I would say that pretty much the rest of these guys, if any of them end up getting held out. Now, I hope Holland, look, again, I'm going to say it for the last time. If they can play, they need to play. Especially with Elliott being out, I think Holland does need to be in there. It'll be interesting to see. Obviously, a lot of these are going to be game time decisions. It's going to come down to then. So we'll just have to wait and see. All right, now let's get to the Jets. So, Rodgers being out, that's really not unexpected at all. I would be surprised if he plays. I think the Jets would be stupid to play him this year and even take that risk, but obviously not playing for this game. Jason Brown-Lee, their offense is not very good to begin with, so missing one of their receivers. Now, I think he's a rookie, if I'm not mistaken, and he hasn't done much for him, but he has kind of come on the last couple weeks for them. So missing a piece on that offense is, interesting. They're also going to be without offensive line Carter Warren with a hip injury. Potentially. He's doubtful, didn't participate all week, and is listed as doubtful. So that leads me to believe he's not playing, which would be huge because their offensive line is an absolute fucking mess, right? Then you have their questionables, which were running back Nick Bowden, defensive line John Franklin Myers, defensive line Will McDonald, offensive line Max Mitchell, and offensive line Joe Tippmann. So obviously, you could see their offensive and defensive lines are definitely not going to be at 100% if they do play. Mekhi Becton, he's going to be good to go though. Didn't even have a game status designation, so they will have Becton in there. So that's, a bonus for them. Breece Hall's good to go. Solomon Thomas, Quincy Williams, and Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson with a knee injury, though. That is interesting, right? So even though full participants and no game status designation, so that's going to be interesting, right? Now we'll get into that a little bit more. Let's go ahead and blow through these real quick. So, let's be honest too. I know last game was very disappointing in a lot of ways, but they actually did end up with over because Tua had 280 passing yards. I think we were over $150 on the ground. So that's over 400 yards of offense. We scored 27 points. I mean, at the end of the day, as you can see, all of our offensive rankings are still basically in the top of the league. Number 1, number 2, and pretty much everything. Our defensive rankings, they may have taken a little bit of a hit this past week, and they definitely need to bounce back. I mean, this whole team needs to bounce back, obviously. Coaching staff included, right? It was a rough game for everybody. But anyway, I mean, obviously at this point in the season, you're not going to see, with only a few games left and the majority of the games in the rearview mirror, you're not going to generally see a lot of change. But here's our rushing statistics. Still, at the top of the league there. And we're going to get into that too because, I think the Dolphins are going to need to lean into that. Defensively, still damn good, top or middle of the league in pretty much all the categories there. Our passing statistics, obviously, still pretty good. Defensively, middle of the pack for most of it. And then our kicking, turnover, penalty, and time of possession statistics as well. So you can just kind of see all that. It's funny. I constantly battle with myself on how much of this I actually need to talk about and point out. I don't know. It's funny. I like to have it in the video for sure so you guys can see it. And then I kind of just like to allude to those certain things when I'm giving my opinions and viewpoints, in the back end of the video when I'm doing the philosophical portion of it, right? Where I'm giving my thoughts on how things are going to go based off of matchups and so on and so forth. Anyway, whatever. So even with last week's performance, as you can see, the Jets offense is still pretty fucking garbage. Like I said, at this point in the season, your statistical categories or your rankings in the statistical categories are not going to change very much because, overall, it's not a large enough sample size anymore, right? The majority of the season is behind us. Defensively, though, as you can see, still they're top 10 in pretty much every category across the board. Obviously, we did put up, 34 points against them in their stadium, so you can take that into account. However, I'm not so sure it's going to be quite that easy for the Dolphins, even though I do think we're going to win. A little bit of a spoiler there, but I do think it is going to be a bit of a fight. Anyway, so rushing statistics, obviously not very good. Defensively, middle of the pack or even back end of the pack there. And honestly, again, we'll get into matchups in a minute, but that's going to be something to keep an eye on, which we will talk about. Passing, obviously, offensively, they're not very good. Defensively, though, they are good. And that is definitely one of their strengths in this game, or, on their team, rather. And then, of course, their kicking, turnover, penalty, and time of possession statistics as well. Okay, now that all of that's in there, now because I will talk about little bits of that. I think the parts of it that I think are important. So let's talk about this game and matchups and we'll include things like injuries, right? Because there is some potential Tyreek Hill doesn't play. I would venture to guess he's going to play. Okay. Now it's possible that it ends up being on somewhat of a limited basis. Maybe they use him a little bit more in this game as a decoy and his actual targets are kind of limited. Who knows? Right. I would, if I had to put money on it, I would say Tyreek's going to play. And like I said, most of the players on that injury report, I think will play out of the ones that either don't have a designation or a questionable designation. All right. So here's the thing though, as you could see so there's two aspects of this, right? There's when the Dolphins have the ball and when the Jets have the ball. When the Jets have the ball, I'm really, even with their performance last week, it was a rousing performance. It got Jets fans all fired up and everything. And Zach Wilson looked damn good. Although, let's be fair, it was kind of spur of the moment in the very butt end of the game, in the back half of the game. Because if I'm not mistaken, they were shut out in the first half or close to it. Or maybe it was 3-3 or something like that. I don't remember exactly. But point is they didn't really do shit for the vast majority of that game. And then all of a sudden they managed to, but that also has something to do with, they were at home and they were playing the Texans and their defense is, whatever and blah, blah, blah. And look, the Jets defense lit up the Texans offense, right? So, and they kept getting the ball back, et cetera, et cetera. So there are a lot of factors to go into it, but overall, I'm going to look at the overall sample size from the entire season and not just focus on that one game, right? So that one game was great, but their offense fucking sucks still. And I'm not overly concerned about it. I'm not really concerned about it, frankly, at all. Now, Deshaun Elliott being out sucks. Jerome Baker not being there sucks. But I think Duke Riley does fine, and now that he's going to have a couple weeks under his belt as the actual starter, I think the communication and stuff will get better. Hopefully Javon Holland will play, so that way our safeties are not Brandon Jones and Elijah Campbell, because that will potentially provide a little bit of an issue. However, I'm not as concerned about the secondary in this game because their offensive line is a complete mess, and I think that our defensive line has the potential to take over and dictate the line of scrimmage in that matchup. And I think that, and look, we saw that Zach Wilson is dealing with a little bit of a knee injury, so he might not be as mobile. Not that he was particularly mobile to begin with. He, has decent mobility, I guess. But if he's dealing with a knee injury, maybe he won't be as mobile, right? So there is potential there, and I think that the Dolphins will end up coming away with more sacks in this game than they did last game. I think Will Levis is a bigger guy. He's stockier. He's stronger. He's got a stronger base, and he has the ability. Look, we should have had more than one sack in that last game, and maybe that would have been the difference in us winning or not, right? But there was the one sack that Chubb almost had in particular. It wasn't the early one. It wasn't the one where he, I don't think it was. Maybe it was. I don't know. It all blends and blurs together. But there's the one where he had him dead to rights, and somehow Will Levis kind of just ducks down braces and, manages to get through it and then takes off for a decent run. You know what I'm saying? So that's not really something you have to worry about with Zach Wilson. Especially if he's a little bit banged up. So I think we'll hit home a bit more in this game. I'm not particularly worried about our defense versus their offense. The only way I would be worried about it, though, is if our offense turns the ball over deep in our own territory and gives them short fields and easy points. That would be the only way that I would be worried about it at all. So as long as that doesn't happen, I'm not worried about the Jets offense, sustaining long drives on us or, having to drive the entire field. I think that our defense can do just fine, especially since we'll be at home. We'll have the crowd on our side and all that good stuff. Plus, I do think that this team is going to come out fired up. I think I've been saying it all week. I think they're going to be humbled and hungry. They're going to, be ready to right the ship and make sure that there isn't some big December collapse and that this loss last week or this past Monday to the Titans was more of an aberration. And honestly, like I said, after I saw Hard Knocks 2, I think they may have even been feeling themselves a little too much going into that game. And then obviously it kind of just got derailed by injuries and various other things along the way. But I think they're going to come out humbled and hungry and ready to fucking take care of business, okay? Now, that's defense versus their offense. Not worried about it, right? Our offense versus their defense. Now, again, the biggest issue for me is going to be the offensive line, okay? And they do have a damn good defense. But as you could see in their statistics, they're most susceptible in the run. Now, here's the thing. I think the biggest key for this game, and frankly, I think the biggest key for this Miami Dolphins team going down the stretch, so this game, next game, the game after that, and frankly, throughout the entirety of the playoffs, okay? I think the key for the remainder of this Dolphins season is to pivot on offense, especially with the offensive line being kind of makeshift the way it is. Now, again, hopefully we'll get Hunt back at some point, throw him in there. Hopefully either Jonathan Harrison or Matt Skura, I would expect that they should, because both of those guys are at least true centers with, ample starting experience in the NFL. They're just going to need to get adjusted to the scheme, the system, and get some rhythm and chemistry with Tua. That's going to be the thing, and that's going to take at least a week or two probably, right? But odds are one of those guys might end up having to start this game because Williams is out indefinitely and Eichenberg is questionable with his calf injury, right? So, but anyway, I would think, though, that those two guys should likely be at least a step up from Eichenberg. So if at some point, and preferably for the rest of the season, I mean, I know we're not going to have Hunt this game, but if we can get it to Armstead, Rob Jones, I guess, or Lester Cotton at left guard with either Harrison or Skura at center, whichever one's the better of the two, both of which I think would be a step up from Eichenberg at center. Robert Hunt at right guard. And then Austin Jackson at right tackle. And then if we can settle them in and get those guys the rest of the season, I think we can be all right. But here's the thing. Run the ball. That's the key. It's going to be the key for this game because they're going to be susceptible to it. It's going to be the way to get. But look, the Dolphins need to also prove that they can play gritty football and win football games that way. And they can do it, damn it. They can do it. Mike McDaniel is, came up through the ranks as run game guy, run game coordinator and all that shit, right? We have the running backs to do it. The offensive line, even last game, blocked way better for the run game. We racked up like $150, right? And it's December football. This is where gritty and injuries are a thing, right? So run the football. You will also manage the clock. You'll eat it. You'll keep their offense off the field, give them less possessions. It's a slightly safer approach. So that way you are, have less opportunities to turn the ball over. And then it will also open up the pass game a bit more. I know we've been, a pass first to open up the run game kind of team. But we need to pivot and we need to go the other way. We need to lean on the run game and then that'll open up the pass game for you, especially if Hill doesn't play and even with him being banged up. Okay, so that is, I think, the number one key for this Miami Dolphins team the rest of the stretch and the rest of the season and into the playoffs. Run the fucking football and switch from being a pass first, run second team to a run first, pass second team. I know, look, it may mean that Tyreek Hill doesn't get 2,000 yards. Although, frankly, he still could, if he does play this game. I think he only needs I think it's like 104 or maybe 114, something like that, yards per game in the final 4 games. He could get that even on a limited basis. And even if they do run a run-heavy offense, because then that if they run a lot and you start getting linebackers cheating up and so on and so forth, then you'll open up portions of the field for your wide receivers. If you get safeties cheating up, then you can blow them away over the top, and Tyreek's got that speed. You don't need a lot of plays for him to get his yards if that's the case, right? You only need a couple here and there. So they need to go into that gritty mindset, and they need to play fundamental ground and pound kind of football and run that shit. The other key is they're also going to need to get some other guys into the mix. River Craycraft, Braxton Berrios, Chase Claypool, particularly in the red zone. We're still ranked at the top of the league for red zone offense. Okay, I mean, we're still 71.11%, which is first in the NFL still. Okay, so we're still able to do it, but we also need to run the ball when we're down there. But if you're going to pass it, Chase Claypool's the guy to fucking throw it to. He's that big body motherfucker. He's the target in the red zone if you're going to throw it. Otherwise, run the fucking ball, okay? And in short yardage. But run the ball. And then off of that is where your pass game needs to come with the play action and bootlegs. And when you start seeing, linebackers and safeties cheat up, that's when you take your shot over the top and so on and so forth, right? Look, Mike McDaniel is smart enough. He just needs to do it. I hope he realizes it. I think he does. We'll obviously have to wait and see how it plays out. But all factors included, it's December football. Our offensive line is a mess. The Jets defense is susceptible to running, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. it's also a solve for short yardage and goal line issues that we've had, right? And some of the red zone issues that we have had when we've been in the red zone and had issues, right? Et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, that's what I got for you guys. Yeah, so I hope you guys appreciate my perspective, like my videos, all that stuff. If you do, make sure you leave comments down in the comment section. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, share my channel and videos with your friends and family, all that good stuff. It is much appreciated. I love you guys. I'm getting out of here. Fins up all day, every day. Let's get back on track, bounce back, and get this win over the Jets, baby. Let's go.
Miami wins it.